The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this morning's Toolbox Talk. My name is Sean Frey, guys, and I will be your organizer for this morning. Just before I do hand over to Chris, guys, a few little things, as it is only a half an hour session, and we do like to keep you for as little time as possible. I do not have a slideshow, but just a short little but just by saying, at any point, guys, in the webinar, if you have any questions whatsoever, just pop it in the questions tab. It'll come through to me, and then I'll get it ready for Chris at the end of the webinar. If it is not a question, guys, if it is a comment or personal experience, please go ahead and add it in there too. We do enjoy corresponding with you guys as much as possible, as this is an interactive session. And guys, if it is a question on the source material, I will leave it for Chris. But if it is a question on the service or the system itself, guys, I will go ahead and answer it as soon as I can. But that's it, guys. I am not going to take up too much of your time. I am going to go ahead and hand it over to Chris. Chris, are you there?
Yes, thank you very much, Sean, and a very big and warm welcome to all of our attendees again this morning. We look forward to the Toolbox Talks. I know I do myself, and we'd like to just say thank you very much to FEM and IOPSA once again for making this possible. Obviously, as they bring these awareness programs and initiatives to us, it really makes a very big difference to many of us. And I just want to say how much I appreciate the correspondence that I have been getting from you. To all of our attendees, we're getting numerous emails, and please do not stop. I really do appreciate the influx of questions, even the suggestions and the comments from you guys. I know I haven't gotten back to everybody. I will definitely get back to you. Please don't worry. It might just take a little bit of time. But I really want to say how much I appreciate the amount of information that I have been getting through from you. So please keep it up. And for those of you who have been asking about the SAOSH CPD point, please remember you must be a member of SAOSH in order to claim this CPD point. Once you are registered, you just go basically into your CPD point section, upload your CPD point under FEM Toolbox Talk, and you will be accredited with this. And then, as usual, it is proudly presented by myself, Chris, at OHSS Consulting. And I look forward to seeing you at the Interbuild convention coming up this week if you have already registered to be going. If you're not, why not check it out? The Interbuild convention coming up from Wednesday this week, from tomorrow all the way up until Saturday. So as I said last week, we are going to be taking a look at cancer in the workplace. What is it? How does it work? And also, why is it so important for us to understand? But we are only going to take a few minutes to really discuss this. And then we're going to spend the rest of the Toolbox Talk discussing a case study on an incident that happened to a plumber just recently. We are going to leave out all the names and places of where it happened. Really what we want is just the information about what happened during this, how can we stop it from happening, and what can we personally learn from an experience like this. But let's start with workplace cancer. Now, this is an initiative that is driven by IOSH, which is the Institute of Safety and Health over in the UK. Also a wonderful group of people really trying to bring health and safety awareness to the world, in fact. And that is why they've done a little bit of research into workplace cancer, and this is probably the most updated research, and that's why I would like to share it with you this morning. The reason being is because it's so updated, it's actually affecting us right now. So the facts and figures that I'm using are not facts and figures from a few years ago. It's actually facts and figures currently. It's what is actually happening in the area, in the companies, in the workplaces around us. They are actually affecting us right now. If you take a look at the current stats of 666,000 people a year dying because of workplace cancer. And that gives you a little statistic there of one death every 47 seconds. Now, by the end of this Toolbox Talk, which is only half an hour, that means over 2,200 people have died by the time we finish discussing this topic. So really, these are staggering facts. And that is why IOSH has decided to use the "No Time to Lose" slogan. And I'd like us to try and remember this when it comes to workplace cancer, when it comes to anything that will cause us illness in the environment, the pollutants, even our own current types of work. There is no time to lose. We need to act now so that it prevents us from getting sick later on. And then obviously those symptoms of cancer cells building up at a later stage and then costing us our life in the future. We do not want to work hard now only to not be able to realize a very good retirement later on because we were not working smart. So the facts and figures from workplace cancer shows that there are over 50 substances that are currently listed that could be a probable cause of workplace cancer. And I'll tell you about a few of them. But the cause of cancer is nothing new in the workplace. In fact, it's been there. The very first case of occupational cancer was identified in the UK in 1775. And this was a skin cancer that was suffered by many chimney sweeps, and they were diagnosed as young as their late teens. But take a look at how long it took to find out that it was that specific carcinogen found in coal soot. Over 150 years. Now, really, technology has come a long way. We are starting to realize more and more the types of effect that we ourselves as humans play on the environment, but as well as the environment or work area around us has an effect on us. And really, having over 50 current substances that are listed to cause workplace cancer, we need to be on the lookout. Perhaps we are already affected and we do not even know. So having this type of information is vital for us, not just now, but for our future selves, our future health. But we might ask ourselves, well, I haven't heard of many people myself having workplace cancer. So is the problem really that big? Well, I want to say an astounding yes. Just taking a look at asbestos, which claims over 100,000 lives a year worldwide, is currently the biggest workplace cancer killer. Now, just in the UK, there's 3,909 deaths. Even though it is banned in some countries, huge quantities of this asbestos still remains, either in original installations or even in demolition, refurbishment, and maintenance work that is currently being performed. And people do not know how to handle asbestos, how to remove it safely, and how to discard of it correctly. And that is why right after this Toolbox Talk, next week's discussion is going to be about asbestos. So please be here next week as we discuss asbestos, the dangers, and if you are dealing with it, whether indirectly by being in an environment that has asbestos in it, or perhaps you're a contractor that is responsible for perhaps removing this, please ensure that you follow legislation. It is vital that we understand the dangers of asbestos. Now, many people say, well, some types of asbestos cannot harm us. Well, that myth is busted. That is outdated and dangerous. All of your white, blue, and brown asbestos are carcinogenic, which basically means they have a cancerous element in it that can cause us illness in the long run. So please take initiatives to understand the area, environment, and workplace that you are working in to see if it does not contain one of these substances, particularly looking at asbestos. And as I mentioned, next week, we are really going to delve in a little bit more to see what is asbestos, how do we protect ourselves from it, and what is the legislation, the current new legislation on it as well for us in South Africa. But what are the current staggering facts of workplace cancer? Well, almost 14,000 new cases of cancer caused by work are registered each year. That's 14,000 new cases. There are around 666 deaths a year from occupational cancer worldwide. So really we can see that Annual financial costs, not only to ourselves as individuals, but to our employers, to the government, for workplace cancer is estimated in the double-figure billions of pounds. Remember, I did get this from IOSH, which is over in the UK. So here we are talking about pounds. We won't even put that into South African rands, but really we can see the amazing impact that it is having on the environment. In fact, it is detrimental to the economy, purely because we do not catch these things early enough. But now many say, well, it is only asbestos that can give you cancer. And sadly, that is a long way from reality. In fact, there are more than 50 substances currently listed, as we mentioned earlier, that are a cause of workplace cancers. And I'll mention just a few to you in a few minutes. So again, let's take a look at the facts. And this is not a scare tactic. I'm really not here to make this a negative toolbox talk, but these are the facts out there of what is actually causing workplace cancer. Things that we obviously know ourselves, but we do not take them seriously. In UK, every single year in the workplace, people are dying, 249 deaths a year because of tobacco smoke, 184 because of radion, and 334 deaths because of painting or decorating products. And these are all because people do not understand the chemicals that they are working with. It is what we do that is creating these cancers. Yes, we understand that it is the products we buy that have these levels of exposure, but we do get safe working procedures. There is a policy on how to handle certain substances. It is because we are not doing it that we are being affected by such cases. So some of the current causes, as we know, workplace cancer is the 5th biggest cause of avoidable cancer, which is behind your lifestyle choices such as smoking or diet. 5% of avoidable cancers are caused by work, often unknowingly. Many occupational cancers are predictable. In fact, they are preventable. All it takes is just a few small changes in how work is managed or carried out that can make a very big difference in exposure levels, and then resulting in the risk of getting cancer. Now, I'd like to ask you, are you working with any of the following substances? Asbestos, coal, diesel fumes, metal working fluids, mineral oils, pesticides, silica dust, varnishes. Is there something that you are currently working with that could be the cause of a long-term cancer? Well, only you will know. You need to figure out what it is that you are working with. Are your exposure levels too high? And how can you prevent it from happening? Remember, it is avoidable, but we have no time to lose. So have your action plan. Many cancers can be prevented by cutting down the exposure to carcinogens. Some cancers can be detected early enough to be treated and even cured. But even with a late stage cancer, the pain can be reduced and the disease slowed down. Only by early intervention can we really have these chances of surviving it. Now, many say, well, we only get occupational cancer late in life. Again, this is wrong. The first recorded case of death put down to asbestos was a 33-year-old man. I won't have any of you to put up your hand to say whether you are 33 years or older or 33 years or younger, you know, but really 33 years old in the prime of someone's life, in fact, even younger than that, he's still reaching his prime of life. I would say that that is an extremely young age for someone to die because of a workplace-related cancer. So are we exposed? Are we in danger? Well, here are a few things that you can do just in your day-to-day life to try and prevent cancer from building up. Things like not smoking, avoiding second-hand smoke, keep yourself healthy from other types of cancers, and be physically active every day. Just 30 minutes a day really can help our bodies to be active. Make sure you get your heart rate up, get that cardio in. 30 minutes a day is really all it takes to keep ourselves reasonably fit. But it really goes along with a whole lot of other things, such as diet and making sure we are avoiding the things that are causing these types of cancers. So if you feel that you are not at risk, think again. When was the last time that you went past a work site where a worker was half hidden in a cloud of dust? What does that dust contain? Well, it could be fumes from the plant or machinery around it. It could be silica. It could be asbestos. No one knows because it's not tested correctly. Have you ever been to a site where the proper precautions have always been taken, where people are not exposed to cancer because of the workplace environment? Well, it is a reality, and that is why cancer in the workplace is only rising. We've learned about it from the 1700s, and yet we still cannot prevent it today. Purely because it's each one of us sitting here today that needs to take the initiative ourselves. Don't let somebody else try and be safe for you. So get the information. Follow the guidelines that are set out in those safe work procedures, and please stay safe from these pollutants. Make sure you protect yourself in the workplace. All it takes is for us to follow the correct instructions. So thank you very much for listening to the cancer section of this Toolbox Talk. We are going to go over to that case study that we mentioned. If anybody wants some more information, I did download quite a bit from IOSH. If you want to, you can do it yourself. Go through to IOSH, that is iosh.com, or co.uk. Sorry about that. If you want, I can email it to you as well. Basically, it is the No Time to Lose initiative, and that is cancer, diesel, asbestos, and you can really get all that information for yourself as well. But let's take a look at our very first case study. This is the first one that we've had in these Toolbox Talks, and I'm hoping to really try and incorporate this as often as possible, perhaps not every week, but maybe once a month, where we take a look at a specific case study. And I'm going to ask you, the audience, if you have a similar experience, please send it through to us of how we can learn from incidents and accidents. This really assists us to make it real, show us that incidents and accidents do happen, but most importantly, how can they be avoided, and how can we stop the reoccurrence of such incidents and accidents? Obviously, we'll be as strict as possible by not leaking out any names or company names or anything like that. We really just want the information. So in this case, we're going to see how other contractors can obviously affect us and our work environment, how important it is to be observant, especially in our own environment. And then lastly, we'll take a look at a few ways that we can learn personally from this type of incident. And again, we'd love to have your feedback. Please give it to us so that we are able to really bring out this information for everybody's benefit. Again, I want to say that we do not want to be negative when speaking to you guys. This is a Toolbox Talk. It's something that many of us don't want to do. But at the same time, if we don't want to do it, or even if we do want to be here for a Toolbox Talk, we don't want it to be negative. We really want it to be something positive, something that we can remember, and that it really takes us through a safe working course throughout the week. But let's take a look at what happened in this case study. On arrival, the incident investigator met the plumber, who then took them to the position of a geyser at their work site. So obviously this plumber was working on a geyser, and the geyser was mounted in a cupboard within a guest room. The plumber then opened the cupboard doors, to which they concealed the geyser. So this sounds like an ordinary day for a plumber, going out to inspect a geyser that is mounted on the wall but concealed within a cupboard. And I'm sure we've seen many of these. But at around 5 minutes past 10 in the morning, while he was conducting the inspection of this geyser installation, the cupboard doors at the center post dislodged. And now you can see there in the little picture on the right hand side, this is the actual footage of this incident, where we have the cupboard doors now laying on the floor, obviously because we had opened it to expect this type of geyser, and then it fell off. Now, being a cupboard door, many of us have these in our homes. They are not very light. They are made out of quite solid wood at many times, and being two of them held together, you can see that it is quite a bit of weight that came down. So this is what it did look like after the center cupboard had come out. You can actually see it there in the center where the other two doors were mounted in correctly, and that is where it had fallen and come off. And there you can see the geyser in the background. Perhaps a very normal installation for many of you plumbers who are perhaps listening in today. But what was the consequence? Now, first of all, I just want to state that that is not the plumber in the bottom left-hand corner. It's just a picture that I pulled off the internet. But basically, this door fell. It struck the plumber on the head, face, and shoulder, cutting below his right eye. So the consequence was serious. He didn't die, but would any of us replace a healthy, safe body for a strike on the head, face, shoulder, and a cut below our right eye? Well, no, none of us would want that. So this was the consequence of why that door had fallen, but we still do not understand how did this happen. What actually caused this door falling and hitting this plumber on the face? Well, according to the incident investigation, the investigator said it is clearly evident that the supporting post and the doors that were removed to carry out the geyser installation had not been secured or reinstalled in a correct manner. I'm just going to stop here for a second. How often have we seen poor workmanship on sites? These are other contractors that we have no control over. But because they come before us, they have so much control over our working environment. Purely because we take for granted that every single person that's coming before us has done their job 100%. Many of us do not double check our work. Many of us are not interested in quality. We rush the job. We do it as quickly as possible, but we do not do it efficiently. We do not check and see that the job is done correctly. So really, the cause of this was poor workmanship after the reinstallation of that cupboard. Now, what was the consequence of this poor workmanship? Now, I'm just going to go back a slide. Take a look at the consequence once again of poor workmanship, purely because a contractor decided not to correctly install a cupboard. Did he feel that it was bad? Well, clearly not. Did he know it was going to injure the next person that came along? Probably not. Well, you see, if he did know it, then really he's not a type of person that we want to be working for us. But even if he did not know it would hurt someone, the consequence is still there, that someone got injured, quite severely if I must say, and it could have been worse. It could have been a worse injury. So fortunately for this plumber, it resulted in him being well afterwards, getting better, obviously, curing, and he's back at work again. But critical incidents can be closer than you think. It might not only be our own work that causes it. It may be another contractor. And because of poor workmanship, this resulted in an incident that could possibly have been a reportable one according to Section 24 of the OSH Act. Now, none of us want to have this happen to us on any site. None of us want this to happen to ourselves, our colleagues, our friends, or our family. And that is why it is so important for us to understand our responsibility. And I'm talking to each one of you individually. I'm not talking to just the employees or just the employer. I'm not talking to contractors who might have done something wrong before. Every single one of us can actually learn from this incident. For one, the law states that every employee is responsible for his and her health and safety, as well as the health and safety of others. The law also states that you must assess your workplace for hazards. So doing a risk assessment, a risk analysis, will help you to understand what are you exposed to in terms of hazard and risk, and how can you mitigate this by what control measures. Is there something we have to physically do to make sure our working environment is safe? And then it's not a legal requirement, but I'm sure you will agree that this is good practice. Every worker should take pride in his or her task. Why is this so important? Well, let us just take again a look at what we can learn. Hazards are present even before we start working. Be observant, perform a risk assessment. Complete your work with pride. Don't take for granted the possibility of poor workmanship before you, or even perhaps you yourself are rushing, and that could be poor workmanship that could affect the person coming after you. Don't rush your work. Check the quality when you are done. Now, many of you might have heard this little saying, measure twice, cut once, and often it's used in the woodwork industry or even in your metal industry, but really it can be used for every single type of industry out there. The idea is to think about quality, is to think about how are we performing our job so that it really ends up into quality workmanship. Now, what would you say? And I'd love to open it up to each one of you in the audience. You can send your answers in now. You can email me, chris@ohss.co.za. You can even text me if you've got my contact details. Let us know what you would say. What could you learn from an incident or accident like this? I didn't put everything down there, just a few basic comments, but we'd love to hear from you. What do you view this incident and accident could teach each and every one of us out here today? And we're going to leave it up there and maybe read a few comments right at the end. I'll leave that up to Sean. But did you know? Now, this did you know is a personal, private did you know. This is something that we did have as a feature in the Toolbox Talk for quite often. And this is something that I personally did over the past 2 weeks. I've met with quite a few business owners. I've been having nice chats to them. And one of the questions I asked them is, how do you receive most of your business? Now, notice the statistics on how business owners get their business. 60% of them said it was because of a referral. 20% of them said it was advertising and media. So they advertise themselves and put themselves on social media, on a few magazines. 15% of their business came from outbound sales, so people phoning and going out to try and get sales, and only 5% came from actual inbound. In other words, somebody needed a service and phoned that business. 5%. But 60% relied on the reputation of that business. Purely because they did quality workmanship, their reputation preceded them. It came before them, and that is why they got the referrals for more work. Now imagine each one of us sitting in attendance today had 60% of our salaries taken away if they could not refer us for another job. Imagine 60% of what we earned was because somebody else said that person is good for the job. Or really, it's a personal question that we must ask ourselves. What is our reputation? Do we get a tick in the excellent workmanship box? That is something for each one of us to consider. When we finish a job, critique yourself. Ask yourself, is this job done correctly? If somebody had to come and do this job on my home, would I give it an excellent mark? And this is something, again, each one of us individually can ask ourselves. So just to end off this toolbox talk, just a saying from Benjamin Franklin: it takes many good deeds to build a good reputation, but only one bad deed to lose it. So something for us to think about when we look at quality workmanship, when we think of our reputation and how we want to be remembered by our colleagues, our clients, our customers, or even the company that we are working for, by taking pride in our work. Remember, this works hand in hand with safety, and each one of us have that opportunity. So at the rest of this week, if you're not coming to the Interbuild convention and you're going to carry on work out there, we want to say thank you very much for doing the jobs that you are doing. We do appreciate it, and do it with pride. Feel good about the work that you are performing, and don't forget to work safe. As we mentioned, next week we are going to be taking a look at the topic of asbestos, but we want to say thank you once again to FEM and IOPSA, as well as SAOSH, the South African Institute for Occupational Safety and Health. So that's all from my side. I'm going to hand it over back to Sean for any questions. But again, my email line is open, chris@ohss.co.za, for any questions, comments, or queries from your side. Thank you very much, Sean.
Perfect, Chris. We do have one question for this morning. The question reads, a person in my area hired a foreign plumber. He took a major draw and then disappeared. I was called in to complete the work on a pressure testing when we found that the plumber had taken a nail and knocked holes in the copper pipes and plastered over. Hence, this is costing the person more than double to repair.
Wow, that is very interesting. Thank you very much, Sean, and thank you to those of you who are sending in those comments. This is poor workmanship, obviously, and we often have these, fly-by-night plumbers. It does happen, guys. We have to understand that it's not just in your industry, it's in every industry. Guys are taking chances. But really, you as a qualified plumber, you are the one who has to give out a COC, if I can put it that way, for these fly-by-night plumbers. They cannot give it out themselves. So please make sure that you are not signing off somebody else's work just to make a few bucks on the side because they've done the work and you need to give a COC. Really, it's something that we need to tackle in the plumbing industry itself. Many of you are in the plumbing industry know that this is a big concern. What we can do just to preempt this type of work is to perhaps do a assessment of the work area before we do our inspections. Unfortunately, it is something that you guys as the PIRB, as IOPSA, will have to tackle directly within the plumbing industry to stop guys like this from coming into the industry and causing disruptions because they are not qualified plumbers. Again, it's something that's very difficult. It is a very tender subject, if I can put it that way. Many guys are just starting businesses left, right, and center. Feel your concern. I do appreciate it. And I think really this is a question that you should raise with IOPSA as well as PIRB as well. Thanks, Sean.
All right, and then we do have another comment here. It reads, always be careful when inspecting a job. I do not take for granted the work that has been done safely. I checked a job where the safety valves on 4 geysers had the safety valves plugged.
Wow. Thank you very much for that comment. I can't see who actually said it. Thank you very much. Really, guys, it's these comments that help us. So please, yes, be reminded that the workmanship that is going on is not good. Many of you guys are attending the plumbing evenings and you are seeing bad workmanship all the time. Let us not be the ones either exposed to it or perhaps doing it ourselves because of unsafe work.
All right, perfect. That is all of the comments we have this morning. It does not appear that we have any questions. Would you like to end off, Chris?
Yes, thank you very much, Sean. I do have some more information on cancer, so if anybody would like it, please, they can drop me a mail. It is there in the chat box, chris@ohss.co.za. For many of you, we just want to say thank you very much for attending. Constantly come back with your feedback, your comments, even criticism. We do appreciate it. We're not perfect. We do make mistakes. And we'd like to say thank you to you, Sean, as well, for being in the back.
Perfect. Thanks so much for joining us, guys, on this Tuesday morning. I do apologize. We did go 5 minutes over, but it was all to answer your guys' questions and actually interact with you guys. So thanks so much for joining us. Thanks, Chris, for taking the time to actually present and to prepare this webinar. And thanks, guys, for joining us. I hope to see everyone the same time next week. Bye-bye and enjoy the rest of your week.